The billionaire returned home early and was shocked to find his black maid teaching his son. The scene Michael Davis saw when he quietly opened the door to the study of his Chicago mansion left him frozen. There was Maya, the 3-4-year-old woman he had hired to clean his house just 2 months earlier, sitting on the floor beside his 8-year-old son, Ethan. But she wasn't cleaning. She was teaching, using small colored blocks spread across the carpet. "If you have 4 red blocks and you give 2 to your friend, how many do you have left?" Maya asked softly, her tone calm and patient. Ethan's small hands moved over the blocks, his eyes bright with focus. "2," he said with a proud smile. "That's right," Maya replied, smiling back. Michael stood still, unable to move, unable to breathe. His son, who struggled even to stay focused for 5 minutes, was learning, laughing, and happy. Something he hadn't seen in months. Michael stood in the doorway, too stunned to speak. For a few seconds, he didn't even blink. He just stared at them. The soft light from the window falling over his son's face and the woman beside him. The colored blocks were scattered all over the carpet, but somehow it looked beautiful, like something out of a memory he had forgotten. Ethan laughed again, a small, joyful sound that filled the room. It didn't sound forced, it was real. For months, Michael had spent money on specialists, therapies, and fancy programs that promised results, but nothing had ever worked. His son always came home quiet, withdrawn, tired. But now, here he was, smiling, sitting cross-legged on the floor, completely focused on something that wasn't a video game or an expensive tablet. Maya leaned closer, her voice gentle. "Good. Now, if we add 1 more block, how many will you have?" Ethan's small fingers moved over the blocks carefully. 3, he said, looking up with excitement. "Exactly," she replied softly, her tone filled with patience and care. Michael's chest tightened. He hadn't seen his son look this alive in a long time, but at the same time, something inside him twisted. He didn't like surprises, especially not in his own home. He finally stepped into the room, his deep voice cutting through the warmth. "What's going on here?" The sound startled Ethan. His smile faded as he quickly looked down at the blocks. Maya slowly turned around, her calm expression not changing. "Good evening, sir," she said quietly. "Ethan was having trouble with his schoolwork, so You were hired to clean, not to teach," Michael interrupted sharply, his tone colder than he intended. "Who told you to interfere with my son's education?" Maya didn't move. She kept her voice steady. "No one told me, sir. He asked for help. I was only trying to explain in a way he could understand." Michael folded his arms, his eyes narrowing. "You're not qualified for that. You have no right to do this without my permission." Ethan looked up, his small voice trembling. "Dad, she was just helping me." "Go to your room, Ethan," Michael said firmly. The boy hesitated, his eyes filling with tears, but he obeyed. He got up slowly, stepping over the colored blocks, and left the room in silence. The door closed behind him. Now there were only 2 people left in the room. The air felt heavy. Maya stood up, her posture straight, her expression calm. She didn't look scared. That surprised him. Most people he employed would be nervous or apologetic by now, but she just looked at him with quiet strength. "I'm sorry if I overstepped, Mr. Davis," she said softly. "It wasn't my intention to offend you." Michael walked further into the room, glancing at the blocks on the floor. "You shouldn't have done this," he muttered. "You have a job. I expect you to stick to it." "Yes, sir," Maya replied, her tone even. But her eyes told a different story. There was no anger, no shame, only something he couldn't quite read, maybe disappointment, maybe sadness. She knelt down and began to gather the blocks, one by one, placing them neatly into the box. Michael noticed the way she arranged them, color by color, row by row, with the precision of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. It wasn't random, there was a method to it. He frowned. "You seem to know a lot about teaching for someone who claims to be a maid." She looked up for a second, then down again. "I've seen a few things online," she said simply. "There are many ways to help children learn." Her answer sounded innocent, but something about it didn't sit right with him. He could usually tell when someone was hiding something, and right now, He was sure she was. That night, after Ethan went to bed, Michael sat alone in his study. His thoughts kept going back to what he had seen. His son's laughter, the blocks, the way Maya had spoken, calm, confident, patient. Nothing about it fit the role of a maid. He rubbed his temples and sighed. "Who are you really, Maya?" he whispered under his breath. His laptop screen glowed in front of him. Without thinking too much, he opened a new email and typed to his assistant, Laura Miller. "Is greater than Laura. Tomorrow morning, get me all the information you can about our housemaid, Maya Thompson. I want to know everything, work history, background, references, everything." He hit send. Michael leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. His house was quiet again, but it didn't feel peaceful. It felt like something was shifting, something he didn't understand yet. The next morning, he went down for breakfast. Ethan was already at the table, stirring his cereal, looking distracted. "Eat your food," Michael said. Ethan nodded slowly. "Dad," he said after a pause, "why can't Maya teach me anymore?" Michael looked up from his phone. "Because that's not her job, son. But she helps me understand things. The doctor man doesn't." Michael put down his coffee cup, his jaw tightening. "You mean Dr. Collins?" Ethan nodded. "He talks too fast," Maya explained slowly. "I like the way she teaches." Michael didn't answer. He just looked at his son, then at the untouched food in front of him. For some reason, he couldn't shake the image of Maya's calm eyes and Ethan's bright smile. At 10 in the morning, Laura called. "Mr. Davis, I have that information you asked for." "Good," he said, his voice steady. "Send it to me now." He received the file within minutes. It was surprisingly thin. 2 pages. Maya Thompson, age 34. Born in Chicago. Worked as a housekeeper for 2 families before joining the Davis mansion. Clean record. Impeccable references. But something caught his eye. There was nothing listed before 2019. Nothing. He scrolled again, thinking maybe he missed a page, but no, the record simply ended there, like she hadn't existed before then. Michael leaned back in his chair, staring at the screen. "That's not possible," he whispered. He closed the laptop slowly, his mind already racing. Later that evening, he came home earlier than usual again. The house was quiet, except for faint music playing from the kitchen. Maya was there, cleaning the counter, her hair tied neatly, her movements calm and careful. "Maya," he said, his voice low. She turned, surprised but polite. "Good evening, sir. I looked into your background today," he said, studying her face. She didn't flinch. "I see," she replied softly. "You've worked for 2 families before us, right?" "Yes, sir." "And before that?" Maya wiped her hands on her apron and looked him straight in the eye. "Before that, I took some time off. Personal reasons." Michael's eyes narrowed. "Personal reasons," he repeated quietly. She nodded. "Yes, sir." He didn't press further. Not yet. But as he watched her return to her cleaning, he couldn't stop wondering who she really was and why someone with her calmness, her confidence, and her way with children would be working as a maid in his house. Something about Maya Thompson didn't add up. And deep down, Michael Davis knew this was only the beginning of something far bigger than he could imagine. The morning light poured through the tall windows of the mansion, but Michael's mind was far from calm. He had barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Maya sitting on the floor beside Ethan, teaching him with such ease, such patience. It bothered him. Not because she had done anything wrong, but because he couldn't understand how. He sat at the long dining table, untouched breakfast before him. Rebecca, his wife, scrolled on her phone. "You look distracted," she said without looking up. "Just work," he muttered. But it wasn't work. It was the maid. The woman who had somehow reached his son in a way no expensive therapist could. Before he could respond, Ethan came running in, his school bag bouncing behind him. "Dad, can Maya help me with my homework when I get back?" Michael looked up sharply. "No, son. You have Dr. Collins for that." Ethan's shoulders dropped. "But I don't like Dr. Collins. He makes me feel dumb." Rebecca sighed. Ethan, that's enough. Eat your breakfast. The boy sat down quietly. Michael took a sip of coffee but didn't taste it. His son's words replayed in his head. He makes me feel dumb. That sentence stayed with him long after he left for work. At Davis Technologies, Michael tried to focus on the meetings, but his attention drifted. While others discussed numbers and strategies, his mind went back to the thin file on his desk at home, the one with almost nothing in it before 2019. Who was this woman? Why did her life seem to begin just a few years ago? Around noon, he called his friend, Daniel Brooks, who worked in human resources. Daniel, I need a favor, he said quietly. Daniel laughed on the other end. A favor from the mighty Michael Davis? This must be serious. It's personal, Michael replied. I need you to run a background check on someone. Who? My housemaid, Maya Thompson. There was a pause. Your maid? Michael, that sounds a little paranoid. Just do it, Michael said, his tone leaving no room for questions. Fine, Daniel said, but what are you expecting to find? I don't know, Michael admitted. That's what bothers me. That evening, when he arrived home, Ethan ran to him again. Dad, can Maya teach me tomorrow? Please? Michael hesitated. We'll see, he said. Maya was in the hallway, dusting the frames on the wall. She greeted him politely. Good evening, sir. He nodded stiffly, his eyes studying her. Where did you learn those teaching methods? He asked suddenly. She looked puzzled. I'm sorry? Yesterday, the way you taught Ethan with those blocks, he said. That wasn't just simple math. It was different, structured. Her expression remained calm. I've seen a few ideas online, she said. Michael frowned. YouTube doesn't teach child development techniques like that. Maya smiled slightly. You'd be surprised, sir. The internet can teach a lot if you look deep enough. That calm confidence irritated him. It wasn't arrogance. It was something else, something he couldn't read. He wanted to press her further, but Ethan came running in again, holding his notebook. Dad, Maya showed me how to count by tens. Look. Michael looked down at the neatly written numbers. His son had done the work perfectly. Rebecca appeared from the kitchen, crossing her arms. Maya, I hope you're not neglecting your cleaning duties, she said, her tone sharp. Maya nodded politely. No, ma'am. I always finish my work before helping Ethan. Rebecca sighed. Good. Just make sure you remember your position in this house. Yes, ma'am, Maya said quietly. She picked up her cleaning supplies and left the room without another word. Michael didn't say anything, but his wife noticed his stare. What's that look for? She asked. Nothing, he replied. Just thinking. About what? He hesitated. About how someone like her knows more about helping our son than the man we pay $300 an hour. Rebecca frowned. She's a maid, Michael. Don't romanticize it. Some people just get lucky once in a while. But Michael wasn't convinced. 2 days later, Daniel called back. Michael, you might want to sit down for this, he said. Your maid doesn't exist before 2019. Michael's hand tightened on the phone. What do you mean? I mean, there's no record. No address, no taxes, no job history, nothing. It's like she appeared out of nowhere 5 years ago. Either she's using a new identity or she's hiding something, Michael finished for him. Daniel sighed. Look, people change their names all the time. Maybe she's been through something personal. Divorce, protection program, who knows? Michael ended the call without replying. His curiosity was quickly turning into obsession. That night, he sat in his study again, staring at the file. He thought about Ethan's progress, about the joy in his son's voice, and about Maya's strange serenity. He needed answers. He decided to go home early the next day. When he entered the mansion the following afternoon, the house was quiet. He walked toward the library and paused at the door again. Maya was there, cleaning the shelves. But she wasn't dusting idly, she was reading. A thick book rested open in her hand. Michael recognized the title instantly. Pedagogy of the Oppressed. He stepped inside. That's not exactly light reading, he said. Maya turned around, startled but composed. It's one of my favorites, sir, she replied. He raised a brow. That's a university-level text. You understand it? Yes, she said simply. What's it about then? She closed the book carefully. It's about how education can either trap people or set them free, depending on who controls it. Michael froze. The way she said it, calm, measured, certain, felt like a quiet challenge. He walked closer. You're not an ordinary maid, are you? Maya met his gaze without fear. I'm just someone who believes that every child deserves to learn. Her words hit him harder than he expected. He stood there for a long time, saying nothing, before finally muttering, "Dinner will be ready soon," and leaving the room. That night, he couldn't sleep again. Something inside him was changing. For years, he had believed money could fix everything. That education was a privilege for those who could afford it. But now, his own son was learning more from a woman he barely respected than from every expert money could buy. As he sat alone by the window, watching the Chicago skyline in silence, one thought grew stronger in his mind. He needed to know who Maya Thompson really was. Because something told him that the truth, once found, would not only change his view of her, but also everything he believed about himself. The 7 wives have gotten firmly once, my and visses. The night wind pressed softly against the tall windows of the mansion. Michael sat in his dark study, his laptop open but untouched. Numbers filled the screen, business reports, contracts, things that once ruled his life, but none of them mattered tonight. His thoughts were trapped somewhere else. Maya. Every time he looked at his son now, he thought of her. The way she spoke, the way she explained things with patience that money couldn't buy. He couldn't stop wondering what she was hiding, and why. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his tired eyes. A quiet knock sounded on the door. "Come in," he said. Laura Miller, his assistant, stepped inside holding a folder. "Sir, this was delivered from the investigator you asked for," she said quietly. Michael frowned. "Investigator?" "Yes, sir, a man named Thomas Reed. He said it's urgent." Michael took the folder and dismissed her. The moment the door closed, he opened it. Inside were a few printed pages and photographs. His eyes moved quickly over the words. The report was short, but heavy. Grace Thompson, alias used by Dr. Maya Elizabeth Carter. He froze. For a moment, his heart forgot to beat. He read the line again slowly. Dr. Maya Elizabeth Carter, Ph.D. in Education, Harvard University, postdoctoral fellow, MIT, former professor at Stanford. He pushed the chair back slightly, his hand trembling. His maid, the woman he thought he had caught doing something wrong, was a scholar, a world-class educator. He read further. Name legally changed in 2019 following professional controversy involving research on racial inequality in education. Resigned from Stanford under pressure after her findings exposed discrimination in elite school systems. Michael felt his throat tighten. He kept reading. No criminal record, no misconduct, only professional silencing due to political pressure. He sat there for a long time, completely still. The air in the room felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were closing in. His phone rang suddenly, startling him. It was Thomas Reed. "Mr. Davis," the man's voice came through the line, calm but tense. "I hope you read the report carefully. There's more. The files we found are sealed under court order. Someone powerful wanted her out of sight." Michael swallowed hard. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because your name appears indirectly in one of those reports," Reed said. "Your company made donations to the same education board that forced her out." Michael went quiet. His hand gripped the phone tighter. "You're saying I was part of this?" "Not directly, but your foundation funded the people who tried to discredit her," Reed replied. "I thought you should know." The call ended. Michael sat there, frozen, the silence pressing in from all sides. He stared at the papers again, and suddenly, every word cut deeper than the last. He had funded injustice without even realizing it, and now, The victim of that injustice was working under his own roof. The next morning, the house was quiet. Ethan had already gone to school. Maya was in the kitchen, cleaning as usual. Her movements were graceful, unhurried. Michael stood at the doorway, watching her for a while before speaking. "Maya," he said softly. She turned, wiping her hands on a towel. "Yes, sir?" He hesitated. "How long have you lived in Chicago?" "Since 2019, she said, looking him in the eye. "Before that?" She smiled faintly. "Somewhere. Far away." He nodded slowly, his voice low. "You've changed your name before, haven't you?" Her hands froze for a brief second before she set the towel down. "Yes," she said quietly. "I have." He took a slow breath. "Why?" Her eyes softened, but her voice stayed calm. "Sometimes people need to disappear to survive, Mr. Davis." He didn't respond right away. He wanted to ask more, but something about her tone stopped him. It wasn't fear, it was strength. Maya turned back to the counter, continuing her work as if nothing had happened. But for Michael, everything had changed. That night, Michael attended a charity dinner at the downtown convention center. Everyone there knew his name, shook his hand, praised his achievements. But for the first time in his life, their compliments felt hollow. As the speeches began, one of the event organizers took the stage. "Tonight, we honor the Davis Foundation for its generous support of educational reform," the woman said. Applause filled the room. Michael forced a smile, but inside, his chest ached. His mind echoed with Maya's voice. Sometimes people need to disappear to survive. He excused himself and stepped outside into the cold Chicago night. The wind stung his face, but it was nothing compared to the shame burning inside him. He looked up at the skyline, the glowing city lights, and wondered how many lives had been silenced because of men like him, men who wrote checks without thinking about who those checks were hurting. The next morning, Maya arrived early as always. She prepared breakfast, cleaned the hallway, helped the gardener with the plants. Nothing seemed different on her end, but Michael couldn't look at her the same way. When Ethan came downstairs, smiling and excited, Michael felt his heart twist. "Dad, can Maya teach me again?" Michael opened his mouth, but before he could answer, Maya said gently, "You should listen to your father, Ethan. Dr. Collins will help you." Ethan looked confused. "But you help me better." Michael watched her closely. Her eyes were kind but distant, like someone already saying goodbye. After Ethan left for school, he followed her to the library. "You don't have to pretend anymore," he said quietly. Maya turned slowly, her calm gaze meeting his. "Pretend? I know who you are," he said. "Dr. Maya Elizabeth Carter, Harvard, Stanford, MIT. For the first time, her expression changed. Her lips parted slightly, but she didn't deny it. "You found out," she said softly. "Yes," he whispered. "I did. And I also found out what happened to you." Maya set down the book she was holding. "Then you also know why I left that world behind." He nodded slowly. "Because of people like me." She looked at him, quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Yes, Mr. Davis, because of people like you." Her words weren't cruel. They were calm, honest, and that hurt him more than anger ever could. That evening, when Rebecca came home, she noticed her husband's silence. "Michael, what's wrong with you lately?" He shook his head. "Just tired." "You've been acting strange," she said. "Is it about that maid?" He looked at her sharply. "Her name is Maya." Rebecca frowned. "She's just an employee." He stared at her for a long time. "No," he said quietly. "She's not." Rebecca rolled her eyes and walked away. But Michael stayed still, lost in thought. He finally understood what kind of person Maya was. Someone who had been forced to hide her brilliance behind a mop and a uniform. Someone who had suffered because of the very system he had helped fund. And for the first time in his life, Michael Davis felt something he wasn't used to feeling: guilt. But guilt wasn't enough. Not anymore. He needed to make things right, even if it meant losing everything. The next morning began like any other, but the air around the mansion felt different, heavy with something Michael couldn't name. He woke before sunrise, unable to rest, and walked through the quiet hallways of his home. Every sound echoed, every step reminded him that he was no longer in control of what was coming. Downstairs, Maya was already working, arranging flowers on the dining table. Her movements were calm, steady, but her eyes carried a quiet resolve. Michael hesitated before speaking. "Maya," he said softly, "I owe you an apology." She looked up from the vase, her expression unreadable. "For what, sir?" "For judging you," he said. "For doubting you, for treating you like you didn't matter." Her lips curved into a faint, sad smile. "It's not the first time I've been judged, Mr. Davis," she replied, "and it probably won't be the last." He took a step closer. "I know who you are now, and I want to make things right." Maya's eyes softened, but she shook her head. "Some things can't be undone, sir. The truth has a way of showing itself when it's ready." Those words lingered in his mind long after she walked away. Later that morning, as Michael sat in his office at Davis Technologies, his phone buzzed. It was his assistant, Laura. Her voice trembled. "Sir, you need to turn on the news right now." He frowned. "What is it?" "Just turn it on." Michael switched on the large screen on the wall. The image that appeared made his heart drop. A familiar face filled the frame. Maya. But not the maid he knew. She stood behind a podium, dressed in a navy blue blazer, her posture firm, her voice clear and calm. The banner behind her read, "Harvard-MIT Educational Conference, the return of Dr. Maya Elizabeth Carter." Michael's body went numb. He turned up the volume. 2 years ago, Maya's voice came through, strong and steady. "I was forced to give up my identity after exposing deep racial bias and corruption in elite education systems. Today, I return not in anger, but in truth." The reporter's flashes lit up the stage. Michael leaned forward, his heart pounding. "I worked quietly as a maid in a home owned by a man who helped fund those same systems," she continued, "a man who unknowingly contributed to silencing people like me." Michael's hands trembled. He could barely breathe. "But in that home," she said, "I found something I didn't expect, a little boy who reminded me why I started all this in the first place. A child who struggled not because he lacked intelligence, but because the world around him measured worth by money and status." Images appeared behind her, Ethan's worksheets, colored blocks, a photo of him smiling. Michael pressed his hand to his mouth. While Mr. Davis searched for experts and doctors, he overlooked the simplest truth, Maya said softly. "Education should lift people up, not lock them out." Gasps filled the room as documents appeared on the screen behind her: donation receipts, emails, signed checks from the Davis Foundation for Educational Excellence. "Mr. Davis's foundation," she said, "funded programs that limited access to education for underprivileged children, the same kind of policies that cost me my career." Michael felt the blood leave his face. The reporters began shouting questions, the cameras zooming in. Maya raised her hand gently. "This is not revenge," she said. "It's a call for accountability. If education is a privilege, then the future will belong only to a few. But if education is a right, then every child, including Ethan Davis, will have a chance to shine." The auditorium erupted in applause. Michael turned off the screen, his reflection staring back at him from the black glass. For the first time in years, he saw himself clearly. A man who had built a fortune on good intentions, without ever asking who paid the price. His phone started ringing. Reporters. Investors. His wife. He didn't answer. He just sat there, staring at nothing, the weight of his own actions pressing down on him. By evening, the news had spread everywhere. Maya's face was on every major network, every social platform. The name Michael Davis was trending for all the wrong reasons. Rebecca stormed into his office, furious. "What did you do? Do you realize what this means for us?" Michael didn't argue. He just stood up slowly. "It means I have to face what I've done." "You can't talk to her again," she snapped. "She destroyed you." He looked at her calmly. "No, I destroyed myself." The following week was chaos. His company's board forced him to resign. Sponsors withdrew support. Public pressure mounted. Within days, Davis Technologies, once his pride, began to crumble. But through all of it, Michael stayed quiet. For the first time, he listened. 6 months later, the city had moved on, but the scars of his downfall remained. The mansion was quieter now, emptier. Rebecca had left to stay with her sister. Ethan, however, was happier than ever. He was enrolled in a special learning program at the University of Chicago Educational Lab, a program led by none other than Dr. Maya Elizabeth Carter. One afternoon, Michael found himself outside the classroom, watching through the glass window. Ethan sat among other children, smiling, engaged, confident. Maya stood at the front, explaining a lesson with her usual calm, kind voice. After class, Ethan ran up to her. "Dr. Carter, can my dad come inside?" Maya looked up and saw him standing by the door. She nodded gently. Michael entered, his steps slow. "I didn't mean to interrupt." "You didn't," she said. He looked around the room, at the drawings on the walls, the laughter of the children, and then back at her. "You did all this," he said softly. She smiled. "No, Mr. Davis. They did all this. I just gave them a place to learn." Ethan hugged her before running to show his father a chart he had made. "Look, Dad, I finished the whole lesson." Michael knelt beside him, pride and emotion filling his eyes. "I'm proud of you, son," he whispered. Maya watched them quietly, her face warm but distant. She could see how much he had changed. Before leaving, Michael turned to her. "I've started something new," he said. "A program for schools in the South Side. Real schools, no profit, no barriers." Her eyes softened. "That's a good start," she said. He nodded. "I wanted to thank you for opening my eyes." She smiled faintly. "You did that yourself, Mr. Davis. I just showed you where to look." They stood there in silence for a moment, the air filled with the soft sounds of children laughing in the background. As Michael walked out of the building with his son's hand in his, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: peace. The man who once measured worth in dollars now understood that true value lived in hearts, not in bank accounts. And though the world would remember him for his fall, his son would remember him for his change. Maya watched them leave through the glass door, the corners of her lips curving into a quiet smile. She had hidden for years, waiting for the right moment to stand again. And when she finally did, she didn't just reclaim her name, she changed the story of everyone who had tried to silence her. The truth had set her free. Dear viewers, sometimes life's biggest lessons don't come from success, they come from failure. Michael Davis had everything: money, power, and respect, yet he couldn't see the truth that was right in front of him. It took a humble maid, a hidden teacher, and a little boy's smile to show him what real wealth means. This story reminds us that no matter how powerful we think we are, true greatness lies in how we treat others. Education, kindness, and understanding. These are the things that build a better world. Dr. Maya Carter didn't fight back with hate, she fought back with truth. And in doing so, she not only rebuilt her life, but helped change the heart of a man who once looked down on her. That is what real victory looks like. So, if this story touched your heart, don't just scroll away. Take a moment to share it, because someone out there might need this message today. Like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel for more emotional and powerful stories like this, stories that remind us that no matter where we come from, our kindness, courage, and truth can change the world. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what lesson you took from Maya's journey. Because every story like this one starts with someone brave enough to do what's right.